Welcome to another episode of the Swords and Sports Podcast. One man journey to read 52 fantasy books in 52 weeks and create 52 podcasts documenting the experience. I'm your host, Mike Mogues, and this week I'm joined by USA Today Bestselling author JC Kang to talk about his book, Songs of Insurrection. As usual, the interview is coming up after book details, so about 2 more minutes of terrible jokes and we'll get there. If you want to know all about upcoming news for this podcast, such as what authors are coming on the show, if there's going to be an interview, and all types of promo material, you can follow me at Swords and Sports on Twitter. And if you're looking for clips to see little examples of what the show looks like and all that good stuff, follow the Instagram, same handle, at Swords and Sports. And as a quick promo, you can find this podcast on all your podcast listening platforms, including the one you're listening to this on right now. And those podcast platforms are Spotify, iTunes, and whatever the Amazon one is. I think it's Audible. Just like authors appreciate nice reviews of their book, so do I. So let's all love each other and get this going, so that one day I can stop throwing all my money into Bitcoin as a last-ditch effort to make it. Let's do these book details. The book is Songs of Insurrection. It originally had a different title, but he changed the title, which I think is a wild man move. But if anyone could do it, JC Kang could. The author is JC Kang. This series is the Dragon Songs Saga. This is book 1. It was first published on May 2nd, 2016. The new release is March 2021. It is 416 pages, and the publisher is Dragonstone Press, though originally it's Three Moons Press. But if Dragonstone Press is responsible for these absolutely fucking gorgeous covers, then that's the one that I want to shout out. What books are in the series? We've got Songs of Insurrection, Orchestra of Treacheries, Dances of Deception, Symphony of Fates, a lot of music-based fantasy titles. And as usual, this podcast and this interview contains spoilers for JC Kang's Songs of Insurrection and probably a little bit of the Dragon Songs Saga. If you have not read the book, consider this your warning. I repeat, if you have not read the book, consider this your warning. Without further ado, a man who has way too many accolades to be on this show, JC Kang. All right, everybody. Welcome to another week of the Swords and Sports Podcast. This week, I am beyond excited. And I know I say that every week, but this time I really, really mean it, because I am joined by USA Today best-selling author JC Kang to talk about his book, Songs of Insurrection. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me here.
First off, thank you for slumming it with me. You are way too big an author to be coming on here for a Friday afternoon podcast.
I don't know how big I am, and I love talking to people who love talking about fantasy and sports.
I love the humbleness. My first question, how good does it feel to see and to throw USA Today bestselling author on things?
You know, to be totally honest, I actually don't use it. I don't use that title very much. What ended up happening was that I lucked out. Let's just say that. Everything hit correctly. The algorithms hit correctly. In the grand scheme of things, I don't know if what I wrote, warrants being a bestseller or not. But I don't tend to put the title on any of my books. And if I could take it off my Facebook page, I would. I try, but every time they reject it. So, bottom line being is I kind of like feel icky about it almost, because I feel like I don't deserve it, really. Yeah.
That is the mark of true humility and someone who definitely deserves it then.
I'm a total narcissist, and I'm not zero humility whatsoever. It's just noting fact. That's all.
I'm sure. I find that hard to believe. I like to ask all the authors who are practitioners of martial arts on this show, how quickly could you beat me up?
I have no idea. From where I sit right now, I can't reach you anyway, right? So any given situation, you never know. I mean, there could be that one day when some 4-year-old kid happens to get that one lucky shot in. So you know, it's all a game of odds in the grand scheme of things. Plus, I'm 50, almost 50, and not really in fighting condition anymore. So uh,
I don't know. I was looking at your Instagram. There was a video of you doing Chai Sayao. Am I saying that correctly? Sticky hands?
Chi
Chi
Sao is the
Sao.
character. Yeah. Mhm.
And that looked very scary. It looked like I would never get through.
Well, Chi Sao is, I practice Wing Chun Kung Fu. I've been doing it since 1995. And Chi Sao is kind of like the core element. I mean, Wing Chun is what Bruce Lee originally did. You'll see some
Right.
clips of him doing it much faster than I can do it. But in the grand scheme of things, Chi Sao is just like a basic exercise. And back when I started learning, we used to think, oh, Chi Sao was like all you need to fight. And then once like I got my butt handed to me by a couple of boxers, I learned that you had to really learn to adapt. So what you see with the sticking hands, it looks impressive, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a very set. It is random, but it pretty much is geared towards other Wing Chun people. So
So I've heard you mention that before. You kind of have done all different kinds of martial arts, though. I know that you're a Wing Chun instructor, but like that's not your only thing that you've practiced besides, Western boxing.
yeah, well, I picked up Western boxing because, like I say, when I was learning Wing Chun very early on, like in 1995, I had a couple of sparring partners, and one of them was a Western boxer, the other was a Thai kickboxer who did Western boxing, and just had my butt handed to me because and everything that I thought I knew about Wing Chun went out the window. I kind of had to like rethink everything. So what they say, well, I should say what Sun Tzu said. Sun Tzu said was that if you know yourself, you'll win half your battles. If you know your enemy, you'll win half your battles, and if you know both, you'll win 100% of your battles all the time. So I decided I was going to go learn to box, and still haven't won 100% of the time. Still around 50%. So yeah.
That's pretty damn good, though.
But then, as I came to Wing Chun from other martial arts as well. I had done, as a child, my father made me take Tai Chi with him. And it was taught in a Mantis Kung Fu school. So I learned a little bit of Mantis while I was there. When I lived in Japan, I took up Shotoji Kempo, which is it's a martial art that's based on Daitoryu, which is an older martial art, which both Aikido and Jiu-Jitsu come out of. And so,
Right.
and there's a lot of, overlap between them. And so after that, I went to Wing Chun. And while I was learning Wing Chun, one of my Kung Fu brothers was a Eskrima guy. And so picked up as much as I could from him. And like I said, I had my two sparring partners who did boxing and kickboxing and definitely learned from them. And then picked up some BJJ and Sambo. So I try to learn as much as possible. I can't say I'm good at any of them, but at least I know little bits and pieces of them. No,
True.
just enough to get hurt.
It sounds like you're a jack of all trades. I think that sounds very deadly.
Well, some people think I'm a jack ass, but that's that's beside the point. Yeah.
I as I was going through Songs of Insurrection, I was looking up, your Twitter and stuff like that, and I was realizing, did I need to read the book or could I just follow along with your tweets for the last month?
I hope you followed along in the book, but yeah, you could pick up the general gist of it, I guess, through the tweet storm I put out is basically for my readers. Or in the end, only one reader followed it on Twitter versus I had a few more on Facebook, which is my more main platform.
I love the As someone who is terrified of tweeting, it takes me forever to craft one tweet. I gotta say, it was impressive to be able to come up with 120 character recaps of all the chapters with accompanying pictures and info.
Utter silence. I don't even know how to respond to that. I'm here thinking that, like, no, never mind. I'm not going to bring politics into it in Twitter, so never mind. I'm just going to shut up.
I mean, this is your time. If you want to go there, we can go there.
Well, we won't go there. So, but no, Twitter. I actually formulated them mostly on Facebook, just because that once again is where most of my followers are on Facebook, and I just converted it over to Twitter pretty much.
I did love the Facebook thing you were doing. I was particularly drawn because I have a terrible sense of humor to you talking about Kaya's original name. then that you wanted to make her name Jing Jing based on the Chinese champion divers. And your concern that someone brought to your attention was that it was going to be Jingling Wang.
Yeah, her last name is, Wang, but of course most people will read it as Wang, and we all know what
Right.
Wang is. And so they might take that J for an L, so it becomes a Jingling Wang. So yeah, had to change.
I know that you recently re-released it, but is there a possibility that we could get that changed back for the re-release?
Re-release, maybe like the 50th edition, or maybe we'll do the author's cut, like a director's cut, like Zack Snyder's, but it'll be the author's cut. Full of all the crazy stuff I edited out.
That's where things really start to get a little wild?
Yeah, maybe not good for for video. So
maybe not so much, but it could be fun. So one of the things that I found interesting was you give a recommended reading order, and is it hard to write two separate series that intertwine and then give a reading order of them?
Well, I created the reading order for the readers. I mean, for me, it's pretty clear as to how it works. But I do have people who sometimes ask me, it's like, where should I start? And I created it so there were 5 entry points. Well, I didn't originally create it so there were 5 entry, but it became 5 entry points into the world with intertwining stories. And it really depends on what someone's interested in. Because, for example, Songs of Insurrection has kind of like, some people think there's a love at first sight coming of age story, and like most epic fantasy people don't like that. So maybe if they start with another book, they'll think, oh, I actually kind of like how this writer writes. I'll give them a chance with Songs of Insurrection next. So basically, if someone likes, for example, military fantasy, I would say check out my Crown of the Sundered Empire. If they like more of a sword and sorcery, dark fantasy, then do Masters of Deception. So there are different ways of getting into the world. Now, but for me though, it's kind of like I know where all the story arcs are going, even if I haven't written them yet, and if I'm very slow about writing them. But in any case, I know where they're going, and so I don't think it's hard for me. But if someone asks me where should I start, I'm like, depends on where you're interested, what interests you the most.
I feel like that's like a genius master plan, and it makes you seem like incredibly smart.
Or incredibly stupid, because I've come up with all these things, and my basic readers don't know where to start with me. So there's a double-edged sword to that.
At what point do you get asked the same question so many times that you're like, fuck this, I'm just gonna write the order?
Right now? No.
Yes.
I don't know that many people have asked me the same question more than like 3 or 4 times. So
that's enough for me to do anything.
I have a bunch of rote responses that are ready for if a question has been asked many times, I usually have a pretty good response to it. So actually, those are the ones I can make more and more interesting as time goes on, because I'm prepared.
At the end is going to be an answer that is just so convoluted that everybody's just going to be lost. I mean, if you just kept answering,
brilliant. You got to look at the other way. It could be so brilliant that everyone is just in awe of my brilliance. So,
I mean, I'm very much in awe. That would be funny if you just told someone a different book every time and everybody has like a raging debate. Well, this is where you got to start it. This is what I was told.
Maybe if I were like George R.R. Martin and had that much fame, and I could just whatever. Yeah. Or Will White. I don't know if you've heard of Will White, but his Cradle
superstar.
Yeah, and totally humble guy. I have some pretty fun stories about Will White, just hanging out with him a few times. But it's just like whenever he writes something, it's just like it's amazing. His huge fan base will go and speculate on all these different things. And yeah, I aspire to Will White greatness, but don't have any expectation to ever even reach like a quarter of his amazingness. So
Will White has become this like folk hero at this point. You are maybe the 6th person this year I've had on that has mentioned his name in like some sort of like glorifying way. He's like the people's champ.
He is the people's fist, just like back in the day with the Rock. No, he just had his pre-order, and his pre-order hit #1 in the Amazon store. Like, who gets #1 on a pre-order? I mean, maybe if you're like Patricia Briggs or George R.R. Martin decided to put the next book in Game of Thrones, or like A Song of Ice and Fire. But
yeah,
we're talking about an indie book, and it hit #1 as a pre-order. I mean, And the one, I mean, I cannot tell you how amazing Will is as a human being. One story I like to tell people is that I was over just gathered with a bunch of these are huge indie authors. I have a dog that's trying to, okay, let me bring my dog up here because he wants some affection.
What's up, Snickers? How you
How
doing?
do you know my dog's name?
I do a ton of research for this. I'm creepy.
That's what's stalking, man. But anyway, so we were hanging out. Michael Sullivan, and he's a pretty big name author.
Yep.
Phil Tucker, AC Cobble. I mean, these people are like, what the heck am I doing in a room with these people? And I happen to be sitting beside Will White, and we're talking about launch strategies. And Will asks, what is the best launch strategy? I'm thinking, this is at the time he hadn't hit number 1 with a launch. He'd hit number 50, which was better than any of us combined. And he asked me this total humbleness, what's the best launch strategy? I'm here be Will White.
Right, your strategy, whatever you're doing.
Exactly. And also another great story about Will White. At Dragon Con, when they still had cons back in 2019, a bunch of us got together.
Years ago.
Yeah, back in the dark ages. Oh no, we are in the dark ages. Back in the golden age.
The light ages, I guess.
we were at this restaurant. It was a group of maybe 15 to 20 authors, and we were just talking shop. And we were talking about xianxia, which is the genre that Cradle belongs to. And there was somebody who was trying to get into the conversation, and someone else kept on cutting him off. Might have been me. But Will basically said, "No, I want to hear what you want to say." And so Will made sure that person was heard. And I cannot say what a group cannot continue. Stop saying what a wonderful human being Will is. Oh, and actually, he left before the rest of us and picked up the tab without us knowing. So.
I mean, talk about one way to get everybody to like you, and to do it in the most humble, subtle way.
I'll have to remember that when I actually have money to do that.
Hey man, USA Today bestseller, you might be on your way. But people love him. I know. I just someone was just speaking to me about how great he is. So it's good to see that how many people support him, and that he's kind of
you
built.
Can get him on your show. That'll be a windfall victory for you.
Right. I'm gonna have to cut a clip of everybody saying positive things about him, and then send that to him and be like, "I'm the #1 promoter of your show, of your books." And I'll definitely include him picking up the tab. Now, you've had a super interesting story. How many languages do you speak?
Do I speak well or do I speak?
I guess both. It's a 2-part question.
Well, when I was growing up, I'm of the age where parents thought that if you spoke to a child in multiple languages, you would just confuse them. And so when I was growing up, I only spoke English up until 4th grade. And in 4th grade, I was in part of this pilot program where they decided to teach French to kids. So my actual second language is French. And I did that throughout high school, got to the French National Honor Society for whatever that's worth. Got to college, and basically I had an amazing TA, or actually amazing professor for my first French class. So it was the last one I needed for my requirement. And I am kind of embarrassed to say that one of my best friends also had this French girl as an exchange student back in my hometown, which was only an hour away from college. So I got really big into French.
So that was my follow-up question. Did it feel better to be a USA Today bestseller, or to impress your crush by learning how to speak a language that she spoke?
This time I will take the USA bestseller. I don't know how impressed she was by this at all. But in any case, this was back in I was 18 years old and stupid, so I actually became a French major. And there's nothing wrong with majoring in French. Absolutely nothing wrong with majoring in French, though it does kind of limit some of your options afterwards. You're not going to become an engineer after majoring in French unless you're reading French manuals. But between my first and second year of college, I was supposed to go to France. I actually got accepted to the University of Paris for a summer program, and my dad was like, "I'm not going to pay for you to go learn French." He's like, "But if you go to Taiwan," and here I am. I lived in the cap. I have moved back, but at the time I lived in the capital of the Confederacy, and it was kind of backward back then, and it's made some progress since. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. But I had an option of either going to Taiwan or staying in Richmond for the summer, and so I went to Taiwan. And very soon I actually got a girlfriend and picked up Chinese really fast. I had Chinese in college, and I went from Chinese 101 to Chinese 505 the next year, just from a summer of speaking Chinese every day. So, and this was Mandarin specifically.
That's incredible. So would you say the secret to learning languages is falling in love or having crushes?
Definitely. Definitely. I cannot say there. I mean, there that and singing pop songs, and oftentimes
Oh,
those
that's
go
a
hand
good
in hand.
one. Right. Especially if it's karaoke date.
Yeah, and trust me, when you're Asia, that a lot of that happens. I don't know what young kids in Asia do these days, but back in the day, it was karaoke a lot. So, and
Oh my
then
God.
fourth year of college, I decided to pick up Japanese. So here's the thing: when that girlfriend in Taiwan was actually Japanese, and Mandarin was our franca lingua. It's kind of funny, franca.
No, I got it. It was good. You're on fire. We're really starting to heat up over here.
Actually, I have another cool story about yet another. Oh my gosh, I had a lot of crushes back in college, but I lived in the French house at the University of Virginia in my third year of college, and I had just come back from Taiwan. And
This is
I
ridiculous. I
had
love this.
one buddy, and she was a crush my second year of college, I have to say. She was Taiwanese, and we were both Mandarin speakers, but also French speakers. We were both living in the French house. And so, how in English we say it's all French to me? No.
Right.
Yeah, it's
I
all
think
French
that
to
is
me.
the expression. Yeah.
Yes, it is. I'm forgetting English right now. So it's all French to me. Obviously, the French don't say it's all French to me. So what do they say? It's all Chinese to me. So we were sitting at dinner, because this is in the French house. We all eat dinner together, and we were just chatting in French. And so she wanted to say it's all French to me, but in Chinese or in French. So she said it's all Chinese to me. And then because both of us were sitting there, we're like, wait a minute, both of us speak Chinese. So anyway, it didn't quite fit. So lo and behold, fourth year, I started taking Japanese, just because my fourth year, I was basically, I wasn't ready to go out into the real world, like real
Right.
world.
You hadn't achieved enough at this point.
I had actually more or less finished all my requirements by the end of my third year. And so my fourth year was just having fun. And so I was like, I'm going to learn Japanese. And
Of course, why not?
So after I graduated, I did the JET program in Japan, which is teaching English in Japan, and they send you to the countryside. Like hardly anyone gets to live in the cool big cities. Everyone gets sent to like the rice fields. So anyway, that was once again hardly anyone spoke English there. Once again, every day speaking Japanese, but countryside Japanese. It's kind of like, I guess, if you went to like the backwaters of wherever of Virginia.
Richmond, Virginia. No.
Yes, exactly. But anyway, it's a very different type of dialect where I was in Japan. And so I picked that up kind of, and people later, when I made more Japanese friends, they kind of made fun of like my pronunciation and the usages that sort of were very kind of country bumpkin style. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It's English first. French was the second language I learned, but it's the one I speak. I cannot really speak anymore. Then Mandarin, because after Japan, I lived in Taiwan again for 3 years, and then Japanese. My wife is actually Japanese, so for a while, actually, we met in Taiwan, so we spoke mostly Chinese. But
this is crazy.
Anyway, yeah, but it's kind of funny when I want to speak French. Usually, Japanese comes out. So.
I can't believe this, like the power of love has taught you so many things, and just
the power of hormones. when you're 16, 17 years old, I think we mistake love for like whatever that reaction is that we get. So
right. My hormones didn't teach me anything. Did you ever think
I'm sure they did, but we can't repeat it here.
No, that's gonna be behind a paywall. What a story! I mean, you're like an international man of mystery.
Once again, very little mystery, but international for sure. That said, I've only been abroad once in the last like 12 years, so I'm not very much of an international man of anything these days.
That is awesome. So I had some questions about one of the pictures you posted about one of the chapters was the repeater crossbow. And I had never seen this before.
Mhm.
Is there something to be said about a machine gun crossbow that it is awesome?
And well, actually, the accuracy was very poor. The main thing was to get very quick volley fire, so just pump, pump, pump. So you weren't aiming at specific targets, but you were just filling the area as quickly as you could. So yeah, it was more like laying down suppression fire as opposed to taking people out. It was not a particularly accurate device, at least in real history. In my stories, I say that it's been built upon and developed more. So yeah.
Let me tell you, it's fucking sweet. I mean, you can lay it down with that thing.
Well, have you ever seen the movie Hero? It's a Jet Li movie.
I don't think I have.
Oh, you must see this. It's like just visually incredible movie. So Donnie Yen, Donnie Yen from Rogue One.
Okay, yeah.
He was a blind guy in Rogue One. And if you have you seen the Ip Man movies? Ip
I
Man,
don't
IP
I
Man.
don't think I have.
Oh
No.
my gosh. Okay, so that's on Netflix. And Ip Man was the teacher. He was Bruce Lee's teacher for Wing Chun. And actually,
Okay.
my teacher, my Sifu, my master was Yip Man's nephew. So we watched these movies just like we love these movies just because we feel a connection to it. But Yip Man is definitely worth watching. He's portrayed by Donnie Yen, who also plays the blind guy whose name I can't say from Rogue One. So he starred with Jet Li in Hero, and it was with Michelle Yeoh as well. And it is just a visually stunning movie, and the martial arts choreography is absolutely brilliant. It's kind of like looking at JJ. JJ Abrams has these really cool effects, but really crappy stories, in my opinion. Oh, I shouldn't say. Oh crap! Edit that
Uh,
out. No, I'm just kidding. You can leave there.
well, I agree. So
Yeah, I know. I'm just torn in how I feel he's ruined both Star Trek and Star Wars because he makes
somehow
these
I
stupid
don't think
effects.
he's gonna ever hear this. So you're probably all right.
I don't think he will care if he does. But the bottom line being is that Hero is a really amazing story and just visually very impressive. So I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I mean, it does make me upset when I miss on all the movie references, but I definitely got to add that to the to watch list. I'm always looking for something new.
Hey, Netflix, there's all kinds of cool things, and Ip Man should be there. And say, I don't know if Hero is on it or not, but definitely Ip Man.
I mean, here it's got to be somewhere, right? There's like 90 different streaming services.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm sure there are tons of illegal services as well. So
We'll keep
service.
that. I happen to know some. One of the things that I found super interesting, and I was listening to an interview you did, which is actually where I found out like half this info. Shout out to Virginia McLean, awesome person.
Oh, Virginia, have you interviewed her before?
Yes, she was like one of the first guests I ever have on,
I
and she
love
is
Virginia.
awesome.
And I mean, she's a lot more subtle and subdued compared to me. So she probably had a much better interview than I'm having now. Anyway, go ahead.
One of the things that you went into detail was, just the quality research on beheadings. And I know you've already talked about it. Uh, it was detailed. You were talking about how long someone stays conscious after being beheaded. It was good stuff.
I'm pretty sure the FBI has a file of my search. No,
so,
actually, I read an article when back maybe in the 2010s. It was like ISIS was beheading people.
right. I
I read an
remember.
article about like how long it actually takes to die. I was like, oh my god, that's pretty horrible. And also there were discussions about the guillotine, like basically during in the revolution in France, like everything going on with the guillotine, and then actually after they beheaded someone, oftentimes they hold the head up for people to see, but they said the person could see as well. So yeah, there is a beheading in one of my stories, and so I tried to describe it as I read it. Was that basically because every nerve ending is frayed from the neck? Basically you feel like your entire body is on fire. It's like an excruciating death. So for about 4 seconds. So
That's way too long.
yeah.
So that is something that I love bringing up. What are some other horrible things you've had to research in order to write for the books?
Basically torture. That's probably about the worst. It's just what happens. Like what do things feel like? Having never experienced the beheading. Having never been beheaded myself. How are you supposed to describe
You sure?
what it's like? Yeah. Actually, now that I think about it, how you really can't find out from anyone who's been beheaded what it feels like.
Right.
But it's all based upon modern scientific knowledge. But other types of things, like things they used for torture, I think those were probably the worst things that I had that I researched.
One of my goals is create a video of all fantasy authors just going through their search history. So yours is up there now on Pretty Foul Ones. I love it.
You'll also get very mundane things like brownie recipes. So let's just remember those.
Right. You just got to sprinkle in a little sweet with the sour there.
Exactly. Or spicy, as the case may be.
That's true. Are you making spicy brownies? That doesn't sound very good.
No, well, brownies are sweet, but things like beheadings are spicy.
Oh, yeah. All right.
I'll look up a recipe and see if there's one. Might be a fun thing to feed my kids.
All right. So obviously, you're here to talk about a book. I know we've gotten way off track. So you do have it because it is the most gorgeous cover I think I've ever seen. That is a fantastic cover.
Well, thank you. But to be frank, let me reach over. This is book 2, which I think has an even more amazing cover.
That's wild.
And here's book 3, which, I mean, my artist, I think, just got better and better every single time. And my artist is supremely talented. I mean, he is just so amazing, but he's not the most reliable with timelines. And I kind of describe it as being an abusive relationship, because every time I'm about to say, okay, I got to find somebody new, this is the end, he'll come back because he's like 3 or 4 weeks, or in one case 1 year late. You know, every time I'm ready, it's like, this is it. And he sends me this cover, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so amazing. I gotta stick with him. So
that is you can make an analogy to a toxic ex-girlfriend relationship with that pretty easily.
yes, I could.
So, but regardless, you re-released it with these covers, right? And they're absolutely stunning. And I just had to mention that before we get into the book. So we're here to talk about Songs of Insurrection. First question, how awesome is smoking gooseweed?
You know, it's been quite a long time since I've smoked anything like gooseweed, so I really couldn't tell you. Yeah, everything, what I take pride in with my writing is that I try to plant seeds very early, like gooseweed seeds very early on, for a payoff later. And so we see the smoking gooseweed in book 1, and then there's going to be more to that in actually other books as well. And when you get to the end of the series, you'll see that there's actually something really important about gooseweed as well. And there are hints that are dropped along the way. But as for smoking it versus drinking it versus eating, I'd say probably smoking would give you the best effect.
Shout out to New York, who just legalized it.
Well, it is actually not exactly married.
Right. I love that kind of payoff, because once you start on the gooseweed, it just becomes more and more, of a problem as books go on. Is being able to see green at night an actual advantage?
So I describe that as like the half elf Tia. One of her abilities, or one of her characteristics, is to be able to see in low light. And if you look at, you remember the old military movies where you have the snipers in their low light
right.
And that's the way I see it. Is she basically has like low light vision like that. So whether it's an advantage or not, I mean, hey, if the snipers use it, then there must be some kind of advantage to it.
That's true. I mean, if it's working for them, it probably works for a half elf.
I would assume so.
Oh yeah, and of course, as a heads up, this is a spoilers podcast, but I include a huge spoilers warning at the beginning. And actually, that spoilers warning is courtesy of Virginia McLean, who told me to do that.
Virginia.
She's got great advice.
She does a lot of panels, so she's very careful about the questions she asks.
Yeah, no, she's extremely good at those panels. Have two people ever wanted to commit suicide more than Chen and Zhao?
How far have you read into the stories?
I mean, this is book 1, and let me tell you, they got a death wish.
Well, this is very much based on like Japanese warrior culture, and the idea of Bushido is Tom Cruise Last Samurai. I use Last Samurai because but Bushido is actually a fairly modern day concept. It's something that was brought about by the people who are trying to instill Japanese imperialism. They're trying to brainwash their people into believing that there was a sense of honor, and you did this and this, and you had to obey the emperor and your commanders and all that fun stuff. But there's something very, I guess, romantic about that. Not romantic in the love kind of way, but in terms of the way we look at the Wild West or the knight in shining armor. So there's this code, and so this idea that if you fail at your task, you have to repent by killing yourself. And so that's what goes on with these guys. They failed Kaya, these situations, and so like, okay, we failed you, we must atone by killing ourselves.
I mean, they have a death wish, and at a certain point you just got to be like, I guess stop asking.
Well, and once this does also goes to the idea of an honorable death for them, and this is connected to, once again, the fake concept of bushido, which is die honorably. The actual samurai, which they didn't even go by the term samurai, they went by this term called bushi. They basically, their motto was win at all costs. They were not, So.
What is the smallest infraction that they're willing to do this for? Like, what if they forget to take the tea bag out fast enough? Like, what is it? What do they got to do to just be like, this is it, suicide is the only option?
I think the tea bag is fine. I think it's just something more where they might have failed to protect their charge from a danger. So that's where you're looking at. Not, I mean, if they happen to oversleep, then they're not going to have to commit suicide. So
I'm not convinced. Is it mean that everyone talks about how ugly Kaya is?
So have you? Okay, another movie. Have you seen the movie Shaolin Soccer?
No, I haven't, but I've heard of that one.
Okay, so Shaolin Soccer, the protagonist is Stephen. I can't even think of his last name, but Stephen Chow maybe. But his love interest is played by Vicky Zhao, Zhao Wei, and so she is gorgeous. So actually, when I created Kaya, my visual muse for her was Vicky Zhao. But in Shaolin Soccer, she has tons of acne, and you could never tell it was the same person with the makeup job they did. And so, yeah, Kaya is not supposed to be good looking. She's not ugly. She's just plain. That's the main thing, is she's kind of a plain Jane, or plain Kaya, or plain Jingjing, whatever you want to use.
Yeah, that's a callback. I just think it's mean. Everybody talks about how ugly she is, or plain, and then everybody who has is able to kind of create the magic that creates the duplicate of her, they're like, wow, that's a way better looking version of her.
Yeah. Just the idea is that she's plain. She's I had to go do my do not disturb thing on my phone here. All her siblings are very good looking. Her family, everyone in her family is good looking, and so she's just kind of like a very plain person. But this is also a hint of something else that's bigger. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, you do include a sample chapter of book 2, and she has her ugly duckling to a swan moment, I think.
I don't think it happens right in a moment, but it does happen. Yeah. So by book 2, she has blossomed into a beauty.
Thank God, because it was hurting me after a while when everybody, how mean everybody was. Bullying's a serious problem.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think it would have been especially tough at that time, within her position. So. At the same time, I think some people relate to her that way. We oftentimes read about these, gorgeous heroines and handsome heroes, and so a lot of people. Actually, I did have one reader who said she was kind of sad that Kaya ended up becoming beautiful, because she felt like, yeah, she liked the idea of a homely main character. So
I've seen books play with that theme, but you know what? It is real. The main character can't be super hot, every time.
By statistically speaking, no, they can't.
Should Tian quit the Black Lotus clan and get into gambling?
Tian could totally be a great gambler. He would be a totally
like Rain Man.
Yeah, he's not autistic. People have asked me if he's autistic, and I'm like, no, he's just more obsessive. He obsesses over things. He sees lots of details, but he's not he's not autistic. Some people have asked me if that's the case, and he's not. He's just very detail oriented, very stodgy, very things must be done a certain way. He's an awkward type because he has all these complex thoughts going on in his head, but he can't seem to communicate them verbally. So yeah, but I think he would be a very good. Actually, there are some scenes I think where he gambles and does a pretty good job. So
I mean, he's incredible, and I hate referring things to Rain Man because I think it puts a negative connotation on things, but it's just like the most popular example.
I think many people who are on the spectrum are very resentful of Rain Man in general in terms of
Right.
how it portrays. I mean, there's a very interesting. I think she's on TikTok. There's an autistic girl. There's a girl who's on the spectrum, like she's a teenage girl, and she talks about the differences between autistic boys and autistic girls. And so much research was done on autistic boys, and so they originally people had a hard time even realizing that several women were on the spectrum. So anyway, that's neither here nor there.
We're actually
Yeah.
we're actually recording this on Autism Awareness Day, so shout out to that.
Oh, okay.
Just
Be aware. Definitely.
that's just organic. Speaking of TikTok, do you think there's a future in promoting books on TikTok?
There is definitely a future. Maybe not for me because I'm not particularly photogenic or cameragenic. But for example, there was Chloe Gong. She is an Australian author. She had this book, These Violent Delights, and her TikTok channel is just amazing. And when I don't know if it's TikTok that caused it. I mean, when her book released, she hit the NYT bestseller list, and to hit the New York Times bestseller list is like much more impressive than hitting the USA Today list. But I think a lot of it was the following she gained on TikTok. And I do know several people who are making 5 figures a month from their TikTok advertising. So
it's crazy. So there is, I mean, whatever the newest thing is, that's going to be the future for advertising.
I tried to create some TikTok videos, and I have teenage daughters, and they're like, "No, this sucks." Like, okay, you make my TikTok videos, damn it.
Yeah, this I've had authors say this about their teenage kids. Put the teenage kids to work. Like social media manager. Let's get on this.
Exactly. So here's the ridiculous thing. So I've done a few Instagram tours, basically through Book of Matches Media. Amanda Steele, great shout out to her in terms of the great work she does. But I did a tour with her and just got so much feedback. People kept on sending me messages. And one day my kids picked it up and they looked at my messages and how I was responding to them. And I would just say like, thank you and stuff like that. It was like, no, you got to engage with them. And they just started engaging with this one person. And they just went on this long conversation. They're like, holy crap. It's like, anyway.
Right. There's I feel like I'm in the middle of that. Like, I'm in my late 20s. So it's like I'm just on the cusp of like knowing how to do that, but not being able to. Like I know that's how you're supposed to do it, and I'm like, I can't.
Yeah. No, I definitely think late 20s have you're of that generation. I really feel bad for your generation. I mean, you guys got hit by 9/11, a recession, the Great Recession, and now the pandemic, everything that happened like during when you were coming of age. Man, I don't begrudge but the technologies that have come up around it are definitely quite impressive. It is definitely hard to keep up with it all.
Right. Like, I mean, I don't want to get into this talk about millennials, but our only hope is Bitcoin. Everybody invest.
Are they a sponsor of this? Just
no, they're not. Nobody sponsors this. But if somehow someone with Bitcoin is listening, I will promote whatever you want. So, I mean, we could make a TikTok of you doing sticky hands and just throwing a bunch of bad books at you, and then the only book that gets through is yours.
Actually, I kind of had that idea, but my kids said it was a bad one.
Shit.
So I actually made them shoot a video of doing sticking hands because I have taught my daughters to some degree. But at the end, like, this won't work. No one wants to watch this. So, yeah.
So what does that say about our brains if we got
a millennial, not a Gen Z? Just pitch that idea, man.
Just give it up. It's over for me. When Jaid defeats the Water Snake Clan kid, he says, "It's my honor to be defeated by a better foe." Now, when your liver is leaking blood, is that really the best time to be talking about honor?
The last time my liver was leaking blood, that's all I could talk about. So this is also in the world building. There are several human races that are based upon real life ethnic groups, but I took into account that if they are in close proximity to each other, they would influence each other's culture. So it's not a pure representation of, like, for example, an Italian or a Roman culture or a Greek culture or a Chinese culture. It's just for what happens if they are somewhat close together and they influence each other a little more than they would have in our own history. But there are also two ethnic groups, two races of humans, which don't have any like real life equivalents. And so one of them is called the Bovians, and that's what the water snake. Crap! Spoiler alert. So anyway, yes. But anyway, their particular culture is a warrior culture. They're based somewhat on Spartans to a degree, and so yeah, the idea that death by a superior opponent is actually an honorable way to go. So
Yeah, I mean, maybe in a sparring session for me, but maybe not. Maybe if my liver was leaking, I'd be like, I wish I made some better choices.
yeah, he probably thinks this too, but
Is the best part of being an emperor and a parent that you can always threaten to sentence your kids to death to get them to obey you?
I've tried that on my own kids and it doesn't work.
Well, you're not an emperor.
But you said a parent. You said a parent. So
I love this idea of you are sentenced to death, but if you have good behavior, you're good.
Yeah, well, the emperor in the story has his own agenda too. So everything in this in the works, I mean, it's all beneath the surface. A lot of it comes out in future books, but everyone kind of had people know what they know. The reader doesn't necessarily know. They might be able to infer it, but things are more revealed. And so when you see something like that and you remember it and you come to something later in the book, oh, that's what that was about. So that's kind of like one of those, oh, that's what that's about. So
is going to
learn.
learn.
He ever had any intention to execute her. It was more, it was for the show, in front of, to show that he was not weak, but also that I think the emperor knows certain things that he knows certain things.
I mean, let me tell you, I thought it was an effective threat, though Kaya did not seem to care at all.
There's a lot going, and once again, there's a lot going on in the story. And if you ever get to book 2, you'll see that there are a lot of things going on that'll make you rethink about what happened in book 1. So there are reasons why she was kind of a little disobedient. Or a lot disobedient.
So as time goes on, my questions are just going to seem stupider and stupider because they're just going to get constantly dunked on.
Or smarter and smarter. So look at it that way.
You're too nice. Is going to try to learn ancient magic an amazing first date?
Hey, if all those crushes I had, if I could ever teach them ancient magic, I'm pretty sure would have gotten further than I did. Yeah, what a first date, right? The man is a charmer.
Oh yeah, no, he's with his smoldering eyes and just awesome. I love when characters have a crush on someone and just everything they do is just so perfect. Like the hair flipping and stuff.
Yeah. See, you picked up on that. Actually, what I would never recommend authors to do is use NetGalley. At least not independent authors like myself. But NetGalley, I got a bunch of reviews from people. I was like, oh, this is insta-love. This is so unrealistic. But yeah, I remember what it was like to be 16 and to totally idolize somebody.
Right?
I look at, sometimes like I go and look at these pictures of in the yearbook of these girls who I just totally was just blown away by. And I'm like, I mean, she's cute, she's pretty, but you definitely tend to ideal. I think the younger you are, the less you know of the world, the more things tend to be more extreme. So every first experience is more extreme than the next one. And so, yeah, I don't know. I guess I must have some cynical readers out there, or maybe NetGalley readers are really cynical. So.
Oh my God, forget about these people on the internet. Like, you can't win no matter what you do. It doesn't matter. Just keep sending them USA Today Bestselling. Oh yeah, no. He's the king of the underground.
Yeah.
I mean, I would just keep sending them the tagline USA Today Bestseller. So I guess some people thought it was good.
I don't engage. I mean, basically, when people
never feed the troll ever.
Exactly. Sometimes so for example, one reviewer from NetGalley brought up like an issue of racism inside my story, and it's like, that's the whole idea of what's going on here. But I decided to tone it down a little bit based upon his reaction. So what he read, like a like an advanced reader copy. So I made a slight tweak based upon what he said because I think he had a legitimate concern. And so when that sort of thing happens, I will reach out and thank them, or basically note, hey, this. The most recent one is that I have this one review, and they say an author should never read reviews, but I'm total.
But
Yeah.
everybody does, right? Like every
Yeah.
author does. Like
No,
every author says they
have,
shouldn't, and they all do. Like, how could
yeah.
you not?
Yeah, sometimes it gets to you. But I had this one where I had it was based upon the prequel series to Songs of Insurrection, Dragon Songs, where this reviewer said that I basically was portraying a character who has no hormones, and therefore it's this big male fantasy thing in terms of this girl having desires and stuff because she has no hormones and stuff. And I was like, this is Jill when she's younger, by the way, a half elf.
Okay.
And I'm here thinking, number one, it's like this is elf physiology is a little different from human physiology in my world. So just because this is what you believe about humans doesn't necessarily mean it transfers over to a fantasy world. That's number one. And number two, I can tell you there are plenty of people where hormones haven't hit, but because they've been they're set within a culture that they have certain thoughts that basically will encourage them to do certain things. So, and then her last thing was that I don't know about women's physiology. And I'm here thinking it's like, as a day job, I'm an acupuncturist and I treat fertility patients freaking every day. And I was like, I wish I could find this person and have a live debate about hormones, and we can talk about feedback loops. I mean, this sounds like mansplaining because I'm sure this person has actually had a period and I haven't, but in terms of the actual not knowing about hormones, it's like I know hormones pretty well. Anyway, getting off my soapbox, I was just one of those reviews that really just irked me and I really wanted to respond to, but no, I gotta shut up.
And honestly, I bet you if you met that person, she'd be like, I'm a big fan. And this was just like, outrage on the internet. Like half the time, that's what it is. It's just projecting.
No, I hope you're right.
On a different note, actually you kind of hit this a little bit, but one of the goals of this podcast is to kind of break that stereotypical old school approach to fantasy. The guy is a womanizer who slays the dragon and has to protect all the women, and it's read by people with neck beards, living in their mom's basement playing video games all day. And what about your books kind of break that traditional mold and show that fantasy is a wide-reaching genre that can hit a whole bunch of different elements of, relatability in life?
Well, I think that there's still those types of books out there, but at the same time, I think the fantasy genre has just exploded in terms of subversion of old tropes. And in terms of mine, I think number one, it is a fusion of East and West. I grew up here in the States, and so some of my thinking is very Western in nature, but it does have a level of influence from Eastern storytelling as well. So you get a mix of that. I don't think we have any. I think any toxic masculine characters tend to be more the villains than the heroes. There is actually kind of, if you get to book two, there is kind of when I molded off of Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. He's kind of this. But how about the chef? I'm awesome. I'm handsome, and I'm going to sleep with everything. So there are those types of characters, but they're not usually seen as the primary heroes. If you look at my story, Tien is the main male hero, and he's more of like this nerdy type of guy. I guess I'm self-inserting in terms of these loser types can actually be kind of cool. So yeah, I think that would be the main thing is the setting for one, and the world building, and then also to some degree the where the characters are. I do like to take some things, for example, the love at first sight trope. There's a lot more to that's revealed in book two. So
great, thank you so much for that. I always appreciate some great insight, and then I always follow it up with what makes a good dick joke, because you have some good ones in here.
I do.
Yes, you do. And I make a habit. It's one of my favorite things to do. I make a habit of pulling them all out.
Well, when people call it so a good dick joke, I can't even think of any. But I was trying to hold my dirty mind. But when you were saying about would the Imperial Guard be executed for like leaving the tea bag in too long. So I was thinking about.
I realized as I said that how that could be construed, but this is
like, no, maybe that might
this
not
is a
be
wild
appropriate.
podcast.
But
Go
now
where
I
you
know
want with
more
it.
about the show. We can be totally.
We could go way off the rails. Trust me.
I actually don't have many good dick jokes. But I usually say, I mean, I've been told I'm a dick, and I usually say it's so big it's become part of my personality. But that's about the only joke I have. So
I don't know, man. I thought that you had some funny ones. I thought being called short-cocked inbred shits is pretty funny.
oh, okay, that's the insult. Okay, now I know what you're talking. Yes. Huh. Okay. Yeah. No comment.
I got one more that I'm gonna read, and then can you defeat a naked girl with a shorter weapon? Probably so, but she was probably twice his age and 4 times as experienced. Though maybe your weapon isn't so long. That's a good insult.
Okay, so put downs. Yes, I think that I'm pretty good at put downs in the grand scheme of things. I grew up with some great friends, and we were always just putting each other down. And so a lot of them recycle lines from what people used on me back in the day. So
Is Wang Jinxing the original pen name of Sun Tzu?
Wang Jingxing. I'm not even familiar. Oh, Wang Xingchang. Okay. So you're talking about yeah. Okay, so you're talking about the founder. This is Kaya's ancestor.
Who
So
wrote
Wang
The Art of
Xingchang,
War.
right. So no, his name is Sun Tzu, and so it's a different name altogether. But there is a lot more to that, because if you think about the art of war, it's called Sun Tzu Bingfa. It was basically translated and used throughout East Asia for thousands of years. So anybody from that era would know what it was and what they said. And so Wang Xingchang is this is a much bigger spoiler, so I won't reveal it now. Some of my readers have guessed it. But the key would be to look at that name, look at the characters, the Chinese characters of the name, which I think I wrote somewhere, and that'll give you an idea of something else that's happening within this world.
Oh, I love this.
It's not the same as Sun Tzu.
I love this. I love this idea. Is Peng Kai Long actually the hero of the story?
Is he the hero of the story? Have you finished reading the book?
Yes.
Book one? So Peng Kai Long is definitely he's the hero of his own story. Let's just say that. He's the hero of his own story.
I don't know. My dad's been pretty annoying sometimes. I've definitely, maybe I haven't taken it to his levels of extreme, but. All right, I'd like to pitch you a novella idea. I want the backstory of the smash hit Cloud Rain, the Pillow Book.
Yeah, Cloud Rain is like a euphemism, a Chinese euphemism for having sex. So maybe I will drop some dope beats one of these days, but maybe not anytime soon. Too many other projects going on, too many deadlines to meet.
Because I had this idea of the author Liang traveling around the world in his youth, just failing to pick up women, and then just going home and carving out these woodblock books.
Dude, okay, that's happening. That is totally happening. I will give you credit once that ever gets done. So.
I think it's a terrible idea, but it's what I got for you. So.
Well, have you ever seen? So there, Google erotic Japanese.
Oh, I did. I saw this. I saw it. I looked it up, and then I had to take a quick break on my research for this interview, and then I came back to it.
Yeah, there were such a things, but so that's the other thing, is that there is, I mean, the whole idea within this culture is that they manifest magic through art. And so woodblock was just one of this. You have a woodblock artist who had the ability to infuse magic into his woodblock, and so to influence people's emotions and whatnot. So, yeah.
I mean, it is, what is it, like the first caveman drawing ever was like of a dick. Like, there's a precedent set for it.
Yeah, back to dicks.
It always comes back in the end.
Man. We don't want to get antelope and hunting antelope. We're gonna drop dick pic. You know. Did you ever see they have like an overhead shot of the Pathfinder on Mars, like the path the Pathfinder took on Mars? It's like basically shaped like a dick. Yeah, we are humans. Anyway.
We never evolved past that caveman brain type humor.
You know, one of my theories I think about, and I have nothing to back this up, is that the reason that humans are the way we are is because it gave us genetic advantages. When we were before we had cities and civilizations. Being able to sort out this is friend, this is enemy, and creating associations with that. So that's the way we think about it, sort of ingrained in us. And so we kind of have to move past that in our modern day society, the us versus them, but we're fighting against millions of years of evolution. It's the things that made us who we are to progress where we are that are now kind of holding us back from achieving world peace. I mean, we can't even get things right in our own country. So
I mean, some of it's funny. I can't help can't regardless of how immature it is.
Funny though. Yes. So we can our genetic predisposition to dick pics. There you go. Not dick pics, so we shouldn't be sending that to anybody, but
no. Disavow. That's all I got. I want to thank you so much for taking the time out. Where can people find you?
If you just Google JC Kang, K-A-N-G, or go to Amazon, look up JC Kang, you can find me there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time out, and I can't wait to talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks for having me.
There are just some guests that I wish that I could spend even more time with. We talked after the show. I found that he's a huge Steelers fan. And when I mean huge Steelers fan, like, he knows everything. I think I know a lot about football and the Giants. He knows who, like, the fourth string practice squad guy is. Super awesome to get the chance to talk about a little sports with him. I don't think it made it to the episode, but whatever. He's a Steelers fan, and he's definitely going to come back one day. And I want him to be my best friend. Is that weird to say about a guy that I don't really know? Yes. Either way, he's my best friend. Let's talk about these books on the horizon, because we've got some fire shit coming. There's one more week in April, and let me tell you, just like March, it was a stellar month for the Swords and Sports podcast. I'm ending it with a book that has been much teased on Twitter and talked about on this podcast for like months, I feel like. So we're finally doing it. It's Legacy of the Brightwash by Crystal Matar. And when I say that interview might be the last interview I ever do, since they let me continue after Fletcher, then this might be the end of it. After that is coming on Aching God by former Spiffbo finalist, well, I guess you're always a Spiffbo finalist, Mike Schell, for a super fun interview. And then after that is going to be Trader's Hope by recurring guest. It's fun to get some of these former friends, well, I guess they're friends of the program, back on. Virginia McLean, who's got a new book coming out this week. So does Mike Schell. So go buy that shit. Support. Thanks everybody for supporting. Remember to please follow the social media stuff. I hate shouting it out, so if enough people follow it, I can stop saying it and I could be a much happier person. Keep on reading and join me for the next stop. Peace!